Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever been in a forest or looked out at the ocean and wondered how all the plants and animals out there are connected? Well, it's all about who eats what. And today, we're going to map it all out and explore the amazing food web. So, a really great way to picture a food web is to think of a giant spider web. But instead of being made of sticky silk, its threads are made of plants and animals. Each thread shows how energy passes from one creature to another when it gets eaten. It's an awesome way to see how everybody is linked together. So what is a food web really? Just think of it like a big map of a neighborhood that shows who eats whom. That whole neighborhood is called an ecosystem, and this map helps us see all the different crisscrossing paths that energy can take to get around. Now, to understand any map, you've got to start at the beginning, right? And for almost every food web on our planet, the starting point is with the food makers. We also call them producers. Producers have this incredible superpower. They don't have to eat anything else because they make their own food. How cool is that? They just soak up energy from the sun and turn it into their own sugary fuel to live and grow. They are literally the foundation of everything. So who are these amazing food makers? Well, you already know the most common ones, plants, from the tallest trees right down to the grass in your backyard. And in the water, you've got algae and even these super tiny ocean plants called phytoplankton. You can't even see them, but these little guys are a huge deal. They start almost all the food webs in the ocean. Okay, so if the producers are making all this food, that leads to a pretty important question. Who eats it? Well, let's move to the next level on our map, the consumers. These are all the living things that have to eat or consume other living things to get their energy. The very first group of eaters are called the primary consumers. You can think of them as being first in line at the buffet, and they're eating all the producers. We also call them herbivores, which is just a fancy word for plant eater. So, a rabbit munching on grass or a deer chewing on leaves, yep, that's a primary consumer. Let's keep moving up the web. Next, we have the secondary consumers. They get their energy by eating the primary consumers. These are our carnivores, the meat eaters. So if a snake comes along and eats a mouse that was eating some seeds, bam! That snake is a secondary consumer. It's the next link up. And guess what? It doesn't even stop there. The next level up is for the tertiary consumers. These are predators that eat other predators. So think of a hawk swooping down to catch that snake we were just talking about. That hawk is a tertiary consumer. It's a carnivore that eats another carnivore. And now, we've reached the very, very top of the food web. This is where you find the apex predators. These animals are basically the kings and queens of their ecosystem. Nothing hunts them for food. We're talking about lions in Africa, great white sharks in the ocean, or bald eagles soaring through the sky. They are at the top of the whole thing. But wait a minute. What happens when plants and animals die? Do they just pile up forever? Nope. This is where a super important team gets to work, the cleanup crew, also known as the decomposers. So what makes this cleanup crew so important? Well, they're nature's ultimate recyclers. They take all the dead stuff, like fallen leaves and dead animals, and they break it all down. As they do that, they release all the good stuff, all the nutrients, back into the soil. So the producers can use them to grow. They totally complete the circle of life. So who's on this team? Well, we've got fungi, like the mushrooms you see popping up on old logs. We have trillions of tiny, invisible recyclers called bacteria. And then we've got the bigger helpers, like earthworms wiggling through the soil, and even dung beetles who clean up, well, Without this crew, the whole food web would just grind to a halt. Okay, so we've met all the players, right? We've got the producers, the different kinds of consumers, and the decomposers. So now let's put them all together and see how this beautiful tangled up web really, really works. Okay, take a look at this forest food web. You can see there are a ton of different paths. The grass is a producer. A rabbit, that's a primary consumer, eats the grass. Then a fox, a secondary consumer, might come along and eat the rabbit. But hold on, look over here. Leaves are eaten by a caterpillar, which is eaten by a sparrow, which might then get eaten by a snake. It's not one straight line. It's a whole web of possibilities. Now, this is a super important trick for reading this map. The arrows don't point to what an animal eats. They show where the energy is going. So the arrow goes from the grass to the rabbit because the rabbit gets its energy by eating the grass. The energy is always flowing up the web. And that really shows us the most important idea of all.
In a healthy food web, almost every single living thing is connected in more than one way. It might eat a few different things, and a few different things might want to eat it. It's all these connections that make a whole ecosystem strong.
So I'm going to leave you with one last thing to think about. Looking at our food web, what do you think would happen if all the foxes just disappeared? Who would that affect? What would happen to all the rabbits? Every single part of the web really matters. And if you pull out just one piece, the whole thing can change. It's all connected.